Welcome to the Celtic Exchange Weekly. This is Tino. This week I'm joined by James and Miff as we once again cover all things Celtic. Miff, Celtic had a perfect opportunity to right some of the wrongs of their defeat at Ibrox in January, but couldn't take it. Where did it all go wrong?
Hello Tino, hello James, hello listeners. I think all went wrong at the start. That was we left ourselves too much to do. First 3 minutes of the game we spent exclusively in our box, really, from a long punt for the kick in.
Helps when Diamandi's 10 yards inside your half at kick off.
And again, we had many chances to clear the ball, didn't take it, and we've ended up conceding. And I think from there, that spoke to players and the fans, and it sort of just never really quite fully recovered. Then looked like we were going to get ourselves out of a massive hole, in fairness, and credit to the team for that. But yeah, it went wrong at the start for me, and just the first half, it just didn't look right.
Yeah, and there was a number of other things that played its part, and we'll get to all it and then some as we go. James, just how surprised were you though by the first half performance in general?
I mean, they wilted under pressure. It's as simple as that. Arne Engels, chief amongst it, he's given an opportunity there to show that he's going to be the guy for years to come, and he wilted. He's a young boy and he's got development and training to go, but he should have seen that as his real big opportunity there. And as a huge fan of Arne Engels, I'm really let down. McCowan as well. But the way I look at it is that, when there's so many players have bad games, that points to a systemic issue, a managerial issue, the way he's set them up and the way he's not adapting in game. You spoke to Robbo last week about Celtic's 4-3-3 and it's very flexible and dynamic in situations. I saw full rigidity, so when our defenders are coming out, there's nobody showing to pass to. So, pelters are justified for Carter Vickers and Johnson for various things, but if you can nobody to pass the ball to, that's why you're going back, although we did give the ball back to Schmeichel from our corner at one point.
I know the very one. So Arne Engels overcooks the corner a bit. Kuhn keeps it in play. We work it back. It ends up at Schlupp near the halfway line and it goes to keeper. And it was so infuriating. James, you've mentioned there, so there's a number of guys that underperformed. There's no debating that. Alistair Johnson, prime suspect for me. Carter Vickers. Engels, who I was so hopeful for ahead of the game. Nicolas Kuhn, who has dropped off. We've been debating whether he's dropped off. He's definitely dropped off. Lick McCowan, huge opportunity for Lick McCowan.
Yeah.
Where are you at that? So James thinks when there is that many players performing badly, it points towards a system and I suppose by default the manager. Is that your take, or do the players need to take ultimate responsibility? Hold on a minute, I can see your smile. You don't need too many opportunities to go big on Brendam. So the floor is yours, go for it.
Firstly, we knew what was coming, and I think in fairness to Rangers, they maximised the opportunities that they had. However, and this is not bitterness or sour grapes, I think they also showed how limited they are as well. In general play, I mean, they weren't really building football, things. It was fairly direct, played off scrap. The winning goal shows that, kind of chaos ball as we used to refer to it. And sometimes that will win out. But if you look over the piece, as you should do, the body of evidence is there over the past 3 games of the concession and 9 goals. I know it's something that's been touted on various different platforms, but it's a fact. And so there is a wider issue here in that our system, I think it's fair to say Rangers have worked out how to nullify that or stem that. And we don't really seem to have much in the way of alternatives. And I think the buck stops there with the manager. That said, the manager doesn't go out and play and enact the tactics. And what was so different from the first half to the second half? Was there a tactical tweak? Was it a case that Rangers were actually tired and kind of dropped off a wee bit? I think that played part. I mean, we played through them far more in the second half than we did in the first half. I thought the midfield were a bit braver on the ball. Hatate in particular. You mentioned McCowan having a poor game. I think his output was relatively poor, but he certainly didn't lack in effort. And I know we expect effort, but I thought he really put a massive shift in. Listen, the team improved in the second half, and the first half is what killed us. We just gave ourselves far too much to do. Regardless, whatever game of football, you're always susceptible to that long ball and getting the sucker punch. It's just the fact that we had left ourselves too much to do to get back into the game. I do think the manager has to take a lot of responsibility. Probably the more annoying thing for me is he's talked the talk all week as he likes to do, and he likes to big up. You need to walk the walk. You need to back it up. He's not done that, and he's not done it again.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, and I know it's a word that maybe doesn't sit well with him, but just that wee bit of humility from him to say, look, maybe do your talk once you've got it right. Yes, the position we're in the league is fantastic. I am not entitled. I'm not spoiled. These games are all about winning. Yeah. And he knows that better than anyone else.
He knows that, and he's quoted as saying exactly that. He was saying just how important it is, regardless what's going on league-wise and otherwise during the week. James, before we do have a bit more focus on Brendan Rodgers, Math makes the point. He can't help Kasper Schmeichel giving the ball to Czerny. He can't help Carter Vickers missing headers, at the death of the game. Arthur Johnson missing passes all game. Nicolas Kuhn not taking on his wide men. Luke McCown being slack with passes, and so on and so forth. So, is it more a collective? Those individual mistakes, the players individually have got to be better, surely.
Yeah, it's more than one thing at fault. I think Rodgers is at fault. I think the system was poor, the shape was poor, but then the players within that were also poor. And the board don't get off scot-free here as well, because you would much rather have Daizen Maeda pinning Tavernier in, because that's what he thrives on, and he didn't get an opportunity to do that because he's having to play through the middle, because we sold Kyogo and we didn't sign the replacement striker, the striker that Rodgers would want. He does suffer from a crisis of confidence, so he wasn't going to start, so you're going to have to start with Daizen and take him away from that position on the left. When we sold Kyogo, I was excited because I was like, must have somebody lined up under who we're going to bring in. It's going to be great. Nobody. So that's a big part of the problem yesterday.
A point that got made on one of the various chats that I'm on was that January and the board's intentions were signalled by no Kyogo replacement. They considered
league's done,
the season done.
Bayern will beat us.
That was pretty much the intention. So we attend that game. We attend that game wanting everything full throttle, as we naturally do.
Mm-hmm.
If it's coming for the top of the club, where the attitude's a bit like, nah.
I don't think they didn't try to sign someone in January. I don't think they just went, let's not bother.
See that debate aside, and obviously it is a relevant debate. The manager said he wanted a striker and he never got him. That's the bottom line, right? Mm-hmm. That is the be all and end all of it. He wanted and he didn't get, despite the money and everything else that goes with it. But all that aside, were you not still happy with the front three pre-kick-off? I was more than happy with that to start against Rangers.
I mean, yeah, but you're losing that massive thing that's helped us just stamp on this fixture for years now. Is Daizen Maeda
is Jota not capable against Tavernier? Is Kuhn not capable against Redfern?
Jota's a class player, but he's not got that same high defensive impact that Daizen has. He just troubles Tavernier and they can't get out. So no, I think we're lesser with Daizen in the middle at that fixture. There's some games where you've got Jota, Daizen, Kuhn, and it works really well. Yeah. But yesterday you want him outside left.
And keeping in mind that Rangers certainly tweaked their system, they seem to play with that. It's kind of 3-5-2 going forward, 5-3-2 defensively. So it's not just Tavernier. You've got the three centre halves beyond that. Who would it have been? Suter,
Balogun,
and Sterling.
Mm-hmm.
Pest of a guy. Seen his Instagram? We'll get to him. But yeah, so there's a system. But I think
I don't do Insta.
I think Daizen Maeda starting through the middle was fine for me. The guy cannot stop scoring. He also scored yesterday, albeit it was second half once the changes had been made, and he's been great in there. He's actually been a revelation, and a lot of folks have spoke about the fact that it took Kyogo to leave to almost unlock Daizen, and he's been great. So I don't see that as the reason we never won.
No, I'm not denying the prowess of Daizen through the middle. I'm just saying you're losing what he brings to the left. And Jota doesn't have the same level that Daizen's got in that position.
But you don't think the front three, as they started, should have been good enough?
Oh, they should have been. But if you're looking, if this is post-mortem stuff and you're saying, where did we fall down? Not pressing Tavernier in and trouble him like Daizen does is part of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. The captain obviously misses out. It was a surprise, I think, when we heard about it Friday-ish. I know he'd gone off with a calf strain, or was it 75 minutes the week before? With
both weeks
rested him and all that stuff. But how big a loss? And I mean this more with regard to his leadership qualities, Miff, than his playing skills, which are plentiful. But in terms of his leadership, do you think we went into our shell? Do you think we really missed that drive and that experience?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Heightened atmosphere was an early goal. Obviously, Rangers fans back in the stadium as well. So there was a whole mix of things going on, and there is absolutely no doubt the team would have benefited from McGregor's presence on the pitch just at that time. You know, he's a guy that all the players would turn to in a moment like that. So it's not after timing, it's not hindsight to say that, it's just an actual fact. And there was a school of thought even suggesting that we might be better off without him, because there seemed to be a wee bit more dynamism in the midfield when Engels dropped in and McCown and Hatate were on. So I think that particular fire has been extinguished, just because, much like Scott Brown's effect on the Celtic team, there are the tangibles, but there's also the intangibles. And I think, you know, the impact and the influence of Callum McGregor is still extremely significant within this system and this squad.
Still a problem on the horizon, though.
Yeah, it's one to be managed, isn't it? You know, he can't go on forever. And I think the succession planning for Callum McGregor is a job to be done. But right now, the here and now, he's such an important part of the team. And I was in touch with Robbo earlier on, Greg Robertson, who I'll speak about in a bit, but he described him as the heartbeat of Celtic's team. And I think you can't disagree with that. He is the fulcrum of everything that goes on, and you can see the way that he addresses the players. And I think when he's not there, there's a gap. I put a poll out in the last week or two, and it was just a hypothetical. If Callum McGregor goes off injured in a game next season, he's got the armband in his hand, and he's got the choice of giving it to Alistair Johnson or KT, who does he give it to? Lots of debate, KT, you know, whoever, AJ and all that stuff, and everyone, a bundle of folks came on board. Carter Vickers, obviously, mate, right? And getting a wee bit snide about it. I'm going to say right now, Carter Vickers is not a captain. I don't think he's a leader. I think he's an excellent defender, but he's very much the big, strong, silent type. And if I'm a player, that's not what I want. I want somebody to cajole me and get me going. And I'll say right now, KT should absolutely be the next Celtic captain. And I like Alistair Johnson a lot. And, you know, we can talk about how poor he was, and he was really poor on the day. You need a real leader for that kind of game, somebody who knows what it's all about. And we didn't have that yesterday.
No, and I think, listen, there was nobody more hurt than me yesterday after the game. I mean, I was low. Mrs. Miff asked me a good few times, "Are you sure it's just the fitma?" You know, we're talking low here. Wayne's playing about in the living room and all that. We were watching our friends' kids, and they were playing about and they were having a right good time, and I'm just sitting.
What's up with Uncle Miff? They were saying.
Oh, you're right there. And it's what it does to you. But there is a danger here. We need to remember, poor performances will happen. You're not going to be perfect through a full season. Very unfortunate that a few poor performances have happened against Rangers consecutively. It's been many, many years where we've had to suffer back-to-back defeats against them. But the thing to bear in mind is that these players have built up credit, whether we're angry or not about the performance or the tactics or whatever. And include the manager in that. I think the most pleasing thing is he was quoted as saying it's given me a couple of little things to think about, which is quite a massive statement for him, acknowledging that, you know, maybe I'm not getting things right here. That's an excellent starting point. But also, these players, guys like Johnson, guys like Vickers, who have been excellent servants for us over a number of years. It was only 3 weeks ago they were nearly in the process of almost eliminating Bayern Munich for the Champions League. So these games mean more than anything, and I think it just shows the reaction to the defeat, as sobering and as hurtful as it is, just shows where all our heads are at emotionally, and I include myself in this. As a Celtic fan, all that matters is beating them. It's all that matters. It is our very fibre.
It's huge, and I remember we covered this a couple of years ago, and I was talking about the whole thing about, is it good enough to finish just above Rangers? Is that okay for you? And I was inclined to say yes. Yes, it was, because it's one of the things I enjoy most about following Celtic. And of course, there's a level beyond that in European progress, and we've seen that this season, and we hope to see more of it. But you can't beat it. It's one of the biggest buzz. You're beating your biggest rival. That's part of football.
Yeah, but, you know, we always do the what do you want from the season ahead? And I've said, you know, making genuine progress in Europe as a collective unit, you know, running some of the best teams in the world to the very end, getting a treble and losing to Rangers twice in the league. Would you accept it?
The mad thing is...
You lost me in the mix there.
You got a treble, European progress, lose to Rangers twice in the league. Would you accept it?
Yes, please.
So that's exactly where we are.
Exactly.
The mad thing, right, and this is a very real possibility, that in the league he could very well have beaten us 3 times and still be absolutely nowhere near us.
Aye.
That is absolutely wild.
And if you want to flip how you're feeling and how we're all feeling last night, if you're a Rangers fan, right, my sympathies are with you. If you're a Rangers fan, then you're going, well, you'll be buzzed, of course, because you've beat us.
Yep.
But what have you got to show for it? Nothing.
Well, exactly.
I actually said,
And you're not building anything.
one of the guys in the office today was noising me up, and once we actually got talking normally about it, I said, you know, raging at the fact that you beat us twice and you're 13 points behind us, like, does that not tell you the players are absolute charlatans?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, aye, but get it up you.
Fair enough.
You just need to take your medicine. You just need to take your medicine.
I'm going to tell you of something I seen on Twitter last night, which tells you exactly where all of our heads can go to at times like this. This is maybe something like you might put out, but less so myself, but I'm just going to read it out.
I'm not too sure. Can I just ask, for the purposes of viewers and listeners, this was not run past me. There was no pre-podcast meeting in here, so I'm hearing this for the first time as well.
It was a tweet that said, and it just sounds ridiculous when you look at the words.
Have I not been balanced?
Just hear it out. Is it time for Brendan Rodgers to win this treble and then move on? And within that very line, win the treble and then resign, you charlatan. That's what that says. You know, that it's basically, it's a leading question. It's since been deleted, by the way, and it should have been deleted. How can you possibly be asking somebody? Aye, okay, but it's fine. Have a discussion about it. But it's crazy. It tells you where we're at in this environment, that we're about to win our treble. I think we will win the treble. You can declare that now. You're scared.
Why am I getting dragged into it? It's just ridiculous.
It sounds like the kind of thing you would say.
Would you like Brendan to move on if we won the treble?
No,
really?
I think he might.
If we won the Champions League.
I think he might. Not at the end of this season, but the season after. I think he'll go. Yeah. I think he'll go at the end of his contract.
So there.
But asking the question, and there was a lot of debate on the back of it, and people saying, "Yep, time to go." On the back of a seat, you could win the treble this season, and people say, "Yeah, you've won the treble, but it's time to go." That doesn't make any sense.
We're not moving forward.
You've won the treble potentially, and you've come so close against European big hitters Bayern Munich, but it's time to go. That's chaos.
Just think it shows you how upset people get.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. It shows you what's going on.
That's just, there's no calmness and logic to that. I imagine that person woke up this morning and went,
nah,
a couple of extra cans there, you know.
I shouldn't have nicked that bottle when I won it.
Aye.
And as agreed, and to your mate at work and all that stuff, football is all about winning trophies. So well done to him and his pals for yesterday's victory. But what have you got to show for it? And if you look at Brendan Rodgers' trophy haul, if he does win the treble, and it remains enough,
would this be a good time to?
It'll be 12 trophies out of a possible 13 domestic trophies from Brendan Rodgers. He won 7 out of 7 before he moved on first time around. He won the double last year. He's on track to win the treble this year. What more do people want?
I beat the Rangers.
It's the skip as your John Brown voice. John Brown voice. Bummer. It's the totally disregarding how much we've progressed, you know. One of my criticisms through the years is, we just did really focus on domestic business. We did nothing in Europe and did nothing around the squad. And you can criticise, individual performances of guys that you signed for £9 and £11 million, but you can't criticise the fact that Rodgers has influenced the board to move up those levels that we've asked him to. There's been a sea change at Celtic this year, commercially, operationally, and the link between that and the football department. And they're backing the manager. And that gives us a base to work on. I think the comments he's making, a couple of things to think about in that kind of chat, I think he's thinking, I thought I had the basis of a core team to add, and I thought this too, add a couple of players and we can really have a go at it next year in Europe. I think he's realised that there's bigger gaps and more of a body of work to do. Yeah. So anyone who's just saying, Rodgers out, and that kind of chat, you're not looking at the big picture. And I do think it's just a guy said an emotional post. He's just feeling a bit, pissed off with it.
No, but there was quite a few folks online last night and in different groups. Not everybody's bluttered. Some people are just annoyed and angry and stuff, and some people don't miss the opportunity to go big on Rodgers when and it is a really disappointing and very poor result. But you surely, and understand on the day, in the moment, by all means, we're all pissed off and annoyed at it. But you need to take a step back, Miff. You specifically.
All the Rodgers fanboys a bit touchy this morning. A bit touchy.
I'll get to Brendan Rodgers' quote in just a minute. Before I forget, there was obviously a very notable incident pre-match concerning the Green Brigade, and not to say that it had you could debate how much an impact they had in the game because their presence was missed. So for those that don't know the story, a couple of hundred Green Brigade members were kettled in, held back outside the Celtic Supporters Club at London Road, in what seems to be a premeditated attack. To use the words in their own statement, but I would believe that to be the case. And a couple of hundred folks missed the game. They were held there for somewhere between 4 and 5 hours. No access to food, water, toilet break, anything like that. And it seems like really harsh treatment of football supporters. You can debate, some folks like the Green Brigade, some folks don't. But that aside, this seems coordinated and targeted, James, and it's a bit concerning, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, police applied for this, I think it's an S60 or some kind of
Section
order.
60, it's called.
As a reaction to the town centre stuff before, I think it was the Hampden Cup final game in December, right? So they've got that. I think it's a total abuse of power, and these are, whatever they are, like you say, like them or dislike them, they're ordinary football fans going to the football, and they should be entitled to do that as, citizens of this country. And they've been kettled in, apparently, just ironically, it's a number of years to the day, 14 years to the day, 12 years, to when they were also kettled to a demo down in George Square or near thereabouts, near the Gallagate. I like the fact that they've said they're taking legal advice on that, because, what kind of country we're running where people can't go to the football. Now, if there was a worry that they were going to cause problem with Rangers fans, I just don't think that's true, because they were so tightly corralled in, barriered in, they wouldn't have encountered them at all. So they'd have been off and up Springfield Road, in the Green Brigade section, in the game. I think it was just trying to annoy them more than anything else, just to stop them and doing what they enjoy doing, which is watching football. Yeah,
there's a statement by Police Scotland, and amongst other things, so the Green Brigade left to go up to the stadium at 10:45, and they were told, hold on for now, we're getting all the away fans in first, and then we'll get you up. Turns out that was disingenuous.
Yeah.
The moment an hour passed, and then they went, oh, that's not what's happening, you're all getting searched and ID'd, and we're taking your hoods and balaclavas and all these kind of things. And so that's disingenuous, first and foremost from the police. And then beyond that, in their statement, they talked about we had intel or reason to believe there was going to be pyrotechnics and weapons. They found no weapons. They might have found the odd flare and different things like that, which I suppose you would expect that. But is that a reason enough to stop people, a couple of hundred or otherwise, going to support their football team?
Excuse me, no. Again, I just would echo James's comments. Abuse of power is the most obvious thing that stands out. There's been an undercurrent of this against football fans in general in this country. I know Motherwell fans, Rangers fans have experienced similar, but maybe not done on what would be for Celtic fans the grandest
there's
stage
only one
of all.
team gets kettled, and given Police Scotland's history in terms of bias and employment practice over the years, that's not solid ground.
I just think to have lied to the supporters so close to kick off and then hold them for as long as they did, if you strip everything else out of that, it's just wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And I'll tell you what, I certainly wouldn't like it if it was my son. I certainly would not like it at all.
It's concerning. That's what I'm saying. Where does it stop? It's a wee bit, not been too dramatic, but it's a wee bit 1984. The thought police, we think you might do something, so we're holding you back. So you've not actually committed a crime. It's that you might commit a crime, so we're going to prevent you going about your day-to-day. And it's where does it stop and when does it stop? And
very heavy-handed.
If you go to away grounds, if you travel as an away fan, and yeah, to your point, Miff, if you're Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs, whatever, away fans are treated like scumbags at times. You get kettled in and battered about. I remember going to Tannadice when Angie's team won the league first time around in 2022, as with mate Paul and a couple of others, and
mind Ange,
you were kettled in to a kind of barrier made up of police horses, big Clydesdale, is that what you call them? Clydesdale horses? Big
stubby,
big intimidating horses. And there's women and kids and different things, and people were nervous, and you had to kind of go through between these two horses. It was a terrible experience for doing nothing more than wanting to follow your team to win the league.
For Park, last season there was a row. They'd set up a sort of, when you go into the south stand at Fir Park, you kind of go down to where the wee football pitches are before you go into the back of the stand. They'd created a barrier at the front. They'd allowed a certain number of fans to go down, and then police came in behind them, so basically trapped the fans in between two cordons.
Yeah.
Now, I was standing there with the two boys, and people were kind of like moving about, and we get held for a good sort of maybe 15-20 minutes when there was no reason, and it was to try and weed out. I think there was a few boys who managed to jump without getting tickets, but the way that the police were speaking to just guys, like old guys and women that were trying to get through it was horrendous, absolutely terrible, to the point where, despite me having the 2 kids, I actually saw a police officer out and said, by the way, that's dangerous out there. I said, I had to take the 2 boys up, and he come back with me with a right bad attitude, and I said, whoa. I said, mate, I'm not having a go directly at you, but don't be speaking back to me like that. I said, I'm trying to tell you that's a dangerous situation you've got out there. I've got 2 kids with me, and I've had to move right to the side. Now, by no means was that the worst treatment, but it's just an example you get of that disdain that football fans in general are treated with. It's just like everybody's a scumbag, and it's just, it's simply no good enough. It's just simply no good enough. We pay a lot of money to follow our team. Everybody does. Every fan for every team pays a lot of money, travels long distances to then turn up at the actual arena where the event's been held, and to be treated or inferred that you're some sort of scumbag for going to follow your team. It's just not acceptable, and I think that'll be. I think we've now reached a tipping point, because you'll now see action. And one thing, regardless of affiliation, is that will unite the fans of different teams. I have absolutely no doubt about
fan
that.
groups.
Yeah,
they did the exact same up at Pittodrie there in December. You were there, you and Bridal, and it is a Wednesday night. It is minging. It's tipping a rain, and you're being held there, getting squeezed and all that kind of stuff. To your point, that the money we spend, I think the study that came through was Scottish football fans put £1.8 billion into the economy between travel and tickets and hotels and pubs and restaurants, the whole shebang. So that level of industry, and what you're doing is actively discouraging people from wanting to spend that money.
Yeah, do you know, just overall, it's aggressive, it's intimidating, and it is concerning, it really is. And you'll have seen the North Curve statement, it's a 4-page statement, and they've said, amongst other things, they would like to see a collective review of fan engagement. And I think they mean opening it out to fans of all other clubs, because they see that the football fan, regardless who your team is, has been treated poorly, as you say, treated like scumbags for no reason other than wanting to follow your favourite team, your hobby, your love.
Don't get me wrong, I'm a scumbag, but that's not the point.
That's
for other reasons.
No, everybody does.
Reasons.
They didn't know you were a scumbag.
I know.
And they were still treating you like that. The last thing I want to say on it is that John Paul Taylor, support liaison officer at Celtic, he was getting some flack last night online, and I think that's the last thing that should be happening. I know John Paul relatively well. I used to work with him, and he himself, I think he was there at the Kettlin between 12 o'clock and 3:30, something like that, doing everything he could. And I think some fans throwing him into the mix is somehow part of the blame. It is really poor. So John Paul,
he come out and defend his corner. He put, here's where I was there, and here's what I was doing, and here's when I left. So he's done exactly what fans would love him to do. I think he's just done his job. Done it very well.
Where do the club sit in this?
This is a big question.
Did John Paul put a report into?
Yeah, at the moment we don't have the answer, and just to finalise on it just now. So John Paul has reported his findings back to what I presume is Michael Nicholson and the board, and I think fans right now, particularly the fans that were involved there on Sunday, they're demanding an answer. I think the club needs to bring something out here to say. So the concern is that the club were somehow part of this. This is allegedly.
There was an inference that.
But it was somehow coordinated. But there's a quick way to sort it. Yeah. A statement by the club to say.
But I don't think that really helped the Green Brigade statement, because they don't have anything to back that up. Do you know what I mean?
It's really easy to make it clear, though. Celtic have got it in their gift to come out and say, this is what happened, this is our knowledge of it. So it remains to be seen, but in some way, whether it's the Green Brigade or football fans as a whole, none of us are in the Green Brigade, and we still get a hassle, particularly away games. So there's football fans across the country will have issues and concerns, and something needs to be done. And primarily it starts with your own club speaking to you better, but also as a wider issue in Scottish football. So that was the case. We'll see what the fallout is. We'll see if there's any further statements moving forward. But it's something that, again, it might have had an impact on Celtic, because a core part of your support can't be there. They were also not allowed to display their banner, whatever their banner was going to be, because their ongoing fractious relationship with the club. So they weren't allowed to display whatever they were keen to display, and in the bargain, ultimately they didn't get into the ground. And that's not an excuse as to why Celtic never got going and stuff, but it doesn't help. They play a part. They play a big part in terms of generating the atmosphere and the noise.
One of those days, lads. One of those days.
Let's move on. Brendan Rodgers, so he was asked post-match, did the gap at the top of the table have an effect on the intensity and your sharpness on the ball? And he said it can't do. That's no excuse. If it's a 1 point gap or 16 or whatever it is, there's no excuse. No excuse. We didn't defend well enough. We weren't sharp enough. A good team can punish you. We had a much better second half. It looked like the flow of the game. We got the goal. It feels like just a matter of time. But like I say, you shouldn't then lose the game from that position. James, your thoughts on those comments from the manager?
Yeah, I really don't know if it's complacency from players and stuff like that. I think one thing the team do lack, and maybe this is a part of McGregor being missing, they lack that killer instinct, because around about 60, 70 minutes, I certainly felt it, they were flagging and we were well on top.
Yep.
We're 2 each, and I'm going, there's only one team's going to win this. Famous last words for the commentator. But we had that opportunity to really go and turn the knife, turn the screw, and they didn't. And they let, there was a Ferguson make the change, brings on an extra striker, and we don't react to that as well. You've got to know that he's basically having a last through the dice here, and we did nothing to respond to that. So, no, I think they do like that killer instinct of, right, we're on top here, let's just absolutely keep driving it forward. But no, I don't think it's complacency and points gaps and stuff like that. There's so many things went wrong yesterday, but I'd like to see a bit more maturity in the team. Maybe it points to the captain choice being wrong. Maybe that should have been Alistair Johnson, but stinker he had as well. But he's a good vocal guy, and maybe it should have been him over Carter Vickers. Maybe Aaron Engels would have benefited from that, but I think he had enough weight in his shoulders,
Yeah, possibly. There's a couple of listeners' questions which we'll get to just shortly, which maybe allows us to go into a bit more detail on some of those points you've made, James. Before that, Matt, we've got the sour grape section.
Yes.
I just want to ask though, just about any comments in general on the match officials on the day. And actually, I just mean Stephen McLean. Forget linos and VARs and stuff like that.
Pete wasn't there. VAR wasn't he present?
Well, it didn't seem to be. But there's a couple of things that just stick in my throat. Diomande not getting booked for
kicking the ball
away when we'd placed it for a high kick. Right, it's so easy, right? It's just like, what are you doing? That's a yellow. Stop. A yellow for being stupid. That's what that was. Tom Lawrence's tackle on Maeda, Igaman's tackle on Yang, and various other, let's call them roughhouse tactics. Now, Rangers are well within their rights to deploy those tactics. It's up to the official to stamp them out.
Barry Ferguson tells you all week, this is what I'm going to do. You know it's coming.
We need to be a bit nasty and things like
play
that.
the dirty side of the game.
Yep, and that's what they did, and they were allowed to do it. And it's not the first time that sort of pattern's allowed to emerge. I think the Scottish Cup semi under Madden was the same thing.
Yeah, keep your
there was
cards in your pocket.
seven or eight tackles that I think Diomande had made 2 of them, as well as his Raskin as well had made a couple of them, and they were allowed to do it. So if you're allowed to do it, you've got to keep doing it until you get booked, and that allowed them to disrupt the rhythm of the game.
And I'm going to say clearly, this is not the reason Celtic lost the game.
Yes, it is.
No, but it is worth highlighting. The other thing is, James Tavernier, every time he gets to a throw-in or any sort of set piece, taking all the time in the world.
Drop the ball, change the taker.
We're talking about all these rules that are getting brought into football to make things better. Goalies can only hold on to it for 8 seconds, or you can see the corner. This is all part of the same world. Yep. So surely somebody should. The easiest way to do it, see after the first couple of times, Stephen McLean should just pull him aside and say, do it one more time, you're booked. It's as simple as that. I'm giving you your warning. And he continues to do it right throughout the game.
It falls into the exact same category. When you're 2-0 up, you're trying to quieten the crowd or noise the crowd up, whatever way you want to look at it. You're trying to antagonise, you're slowing the game down. That's a classic tactic. You'll do it until you get told.
Exactly that. I blame it's
Rangers.
I can't have an issue with Rangers players doing it.
No.
They should do it until they're told not to, and they weren't told not to.
But you're saying that's not what lost the game, but it's a tight game, and that allows them to slow the game and make the game shorter than that. The ball's not in play as much as it should have been. So if the ball's in play more, we've got more chances to get up the park and score goals. So it's a big impact.
You get things like Butland claiming injury when Maeda went through and never touched him. You can see it clearly in the highlights. No contact.
Yilmaz did the same.
He's down there and different. Anyway, that's Sour Grapes number 1. Sour Grapes number 2. Dujon Stirling, I mentioned it. He puts a post out on Instagram saying, huge shift by everyone today at that shithole. There's more to come, Jers. And he's written shithole, SHIT, asterisk, 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 asterisk. He's beeped out the whole bit, which is fine. He's not asterisk
the quiet part out loud.
Which is just that. At 25 years of age, Dujon Stirling has won just 1 Scottish League Cup so far in his career. I don't think he's in a position to do that, but we need to take the medicine when it comes to things like that.
Aye, need to take your medicine, simple as that. All that matters in these games is winning.
Winning, absolutely. Last thing, James, Cherny, lock him up and throw away the key for spraying some water.
I mean, daft and stupid and all that stuff, but the most petty and sensitive fan base in the world would have been going bananas if that's Ibrox.
Oh, aye.
And that's any Celtic player. So I think it was Cherny and Bajrami. And you would be getting Police Scotland involved and other stuff, wanting to go and arrest Scott Brown and all these kind of things. Where's that now, you know? So it's very one-sided.
Yeah, maybe. I think what we need to do, though, is just keep all these things in a locker, keep your powder dry, and show Ibrox why this is just been a blip. Before we continue, before we get to some listeners' questions, I want to give a shout out to Pat McGonigal in Southampton. Pat's a founding member of the Southampton Celtic Supporters Club, and he's sadly battling motor neuron disease at this time. A number of his friends and family were in Southampton at the weekend, where there was a charity event to raise funds for MND. Amongst them were Jerry and Brian O'Donnell, a couple of good guys who I've got to know pretty well in recent times. So we hope the event went well and that Pat's in good spirits at this time, despite the result on Sunday.
Well,
so all the best to Pat at this moment. Listeners' questions, as I say, first one comes from Badger, not your Badger,
No, my bad.
different Badger,
Other badges are available.
on the Celtic Exchange WhatsApp group, and he says, well, Brendan Rodgers was let down on the day by several underperforming players. What exactly did he do differently tactically after saying that he'd taken lessons from the defeat at Ibrox in January? Did you see any difference?
No.
Nothing to add?
I think we made the same mistake of starting very slowly, but almost like that was a shock to us. That's, you know, ultimately in these fixtures, you need to meet fire with fire, and the fact that we're even sitting here the day after it debating the fact that we didn't come out all guns blazing is very, very annoying and frustrating.
Yeah.
But it's a fact, and you know why that would be the case. Only the players or the manager could sit here and answer that. Why would they? You know, we were also expecting. Why would the players not come out and go full throttle?
Yeah.
Why would they be so timid? Why would they be inhibited in that atmosphere when they have thrived on it in so many occasions? Why would that be?
Especially given how the manager spoke during the week. You know,
It's all bullshit. You know, listen, talk the talk, fine.
Are they too nice? That squad too nice?
yes.
Barry Robertson?
I think that's
You know
fair
what I
to say. And don't get me wrong, you can't, well, you depends how you are, but you generally can't go smashing into tackles. But one thing, so there was a lot of calls that either went against Celtic or that nothing happened. So Igaman on Yang and Lawrence on Maid that I've mentioned. No response from the players though. The players have got to get around those players or get around the referee or show some frustration at that. And that was lacking.
That's another point to add in where McGregor's missing, because McGregor's always quite vocal with the referees. But also that there was a wee instance in the first half which taught me that we've maybe not quite learned the lessons of nastiness, and that was Engels had the chance to take a yellow card and break up a counter-attack, and he didn't. Which was very reminiscent of the yellow card that Bernardo didn't take on Hadji getting wrong side him, which led to the goal.
Okay.
Those are two instances for me where sometimes you do just need to take one for the team.
When was that Bernardo Hadji one?
That was Ibrox. That was where the goal came from. Remember Scales and no Scales?
Scales
gave the ball away,
Correct.
and he's allowed Hadji to kind of like get wrong side him every day of the week. You're just pulling that back. Now what then happens is Hadji advances, gets his shot away, scores. Rangers are up, away we go. Rangers were already 1-0 up at this point, but I can't remember who it was that got wrong side of Engels, and Engels actually kind of jumped up and moved his feet out the way rather than maybe just take the booking.
Wipe him out.
You know, he's probably mindful of the fact that it's still early in the game. It's a derby game. You don't want to get booked. I do understand that.
But the manager can manage that,
but
and sub you off if he needs
to.
That
maybe shows there is that wee kind of nasty edge or streak that's maybe just missing for them
This moment. No yellow
moment.
cards for Celtic in the game. Yellow cards are part of the game.
Yeah.
And there's tactical fouls and there's streetwise fouls and a variety of fouls and examples like the one Miff's given. And I think the fact that we never picked up any bookings maybe tells you that we're too nice.
I mean, to be fair, Steve McLean set the threshold for a yellow card pretty high. So,
but we didn't go and meet that threshold. If we see that threshold side, then go and do something.
Yeah. No. I think they are too nice, and you're not going to get Barry Robson coming in with a flying forearm and Christian Daly.
No,
but
those days are done.
But there's a modern day equivalent of that.
Yeah.
You can, and I think your starting tempo says a lot about this game. Says about how you're going to approach this game. And Rangers just looked hungry from the first minute, and we looked passive. You know, just even the way that Raskin got in for that shot that went to the corner that came in for the goal, the first goal. I mean, I thought Navarroski had a good game, but he's got a strange kind of way of going out to challenge balls. He goes down in a kind of funny angle. That ball shouldn't have been coming in. He should have been closing down that shot. And it just does that little bit of meekness. You're not going to, I'm talking about how we progress in Europe. You will not progress in Europe unless you've got a wee bit of
Savvy.
nous about, you're a bit savvy, and you shake off the naivety.
You don't want to go full Atletico Madrid, but you want to get on that road somewhere, don't you?
Go and watch some Atletico Madrid videos. You'll learn a thing or two.
You want to kind of head in that direction. That aside from the showing a bit of the nasty side of football, which is part of the game, in terms of just how Celtic play, I was speaking to a mate Paul earlier on, and he talks about Celtic are pretty predictable in their play. Now, it's hard to argue because generally speaking, we sweep the boards domestically, we pick up all the trophies, and we're on track to do so again. But we generally don't play the ball more than one man at a time, if that makes sense. So Carter Vickers gives it to Johnson,
it's percentage balls.
who gives it to Kuhn, who gives it inside, who gives it back to Johnson. We never, break the lines and make the pass beyond the man. So you rarely get Carter Vickers going, forget Johnson, I'm going to give it right to Nicolas Kuhn. That doesn't happen. And Trusty rarely misses out Taylor or Sloop and gives it right to Jota or Maida, whoever's on that wing. Likewise, when breaking the lines in the middle, we rarely make that pass right up to the striker. It's always to a man and then another man, if you understand what I'm saying here. And we need to be a wee bit braver with those kind of passes, but also, where it's at home, sometimes, and I thought the opportunity was really on at times in the second half, to clip it into a channel and put it over a fullback and get Yilmaz or Tavernier or Stelling or whatever turning and running towards their own goal, because defenders hate that. What you laughing at?
The Allardyce exchange.
The Allardyce exchange. The Sean Dyche
Get it, channel. Get us up at pop.
But on occasion, that pass is on. I seen a couple of things where Jota was getting really frustrated at not getting it, and Jota kind of came onto a game. He obviously set up the first goal, and things started to happen.
He was completely starved of the ball.
Yeah, but there was opportunities where he was making that run beyond Yilmaz when they switched him at half time onto the right hand side. We obviously get changed right away when he set up the first goal, and he was saying, "Give me it in this channel." And Adam Ida, who didn't have a great game by all accounts, he was making the run as well. And these are things you can see in stadium. You're sitting watching it, you can see the whole pitch, and he was making the run. And it's almost like the players, one or two things are happening. They're either afraid to make it, they don't trust themselves, or they've been told don't make it. They've been told by the manager.
They're being told don't make it.
I know.
by Ange and by Brendan.
Well, I think Ange at times will allow them.
Bring Ange in. Get yourself to.
Ange was very much a proponent of percentage ball, where it's like, if you pass it past the guy, skip that guy out, then you'll get up the pitch quicker. But if they run the numbers over games, over seasons, that's the ball more often than not that gets you up the park. We're just not doing it quick enough.
I actually think that's the difference. So Ange would allow that pass on occasion and allow you to go and try that thing. I think Brendan Rodgers says, no, we'll play the percentages, as you say. He wants to control every minute of the game. And I think there's times where... So if Carter Vickers passes to Alistair Johnson, it's dead safe, and almost 100 times out of 100 that pass will be completed. If on occasion he tries to clip it into the channel for Jota's running on, maybe 50% of the time that'll work, but the time you get in, you might really get in and go and do something. And I think it's something that we're lacking. We're a wee bit predictable in our play. That's me done now.
I hope Brendan's not tuning in if he hears you to have turned him.
Miss ready to go.
A bad day's just turned into a bad couple of days. Poor Brendan.
I thought you had a whole sermon ready here now.
No. Listen, it's very easy to be reactionary in these situations. You mentioned something earlier, Tino. We win all the trophies. There's a reason for that. This style of football serves as well. What's missing is an adjustment, a tweak or a plan B to when certain situations happen in game. But more than that, I think the first 25 minutes of the game yesterday are the reason why we get beat. It's actually not necessarily what happened in the last 5. It's what happened at the start, because we left ourselves too much to do. Why did we start so cold and so slowly? Who knows? But
we closed that gap. Yeah, of course they were terrible in the first 25 minutes, but we did get back.
That's what I mean.
I mean, even on about 20 minutes, it started to settle into we had all the possession, we had all the attacks, and they were relying on long balls and kind of what you expected from them, and that persisted until the 85th minute. So Rodgers, to a degree, will say my game plan worked, just not enough. And I think that the issue with this short passing is it was the pace.
Rodgers won 2-3 on the day.
2-3, yeah, depending how you look at it. But the passing was too ponderous, and then when the guy receives the ball, he's taking too many touches, and that, as much as Rodgers dictates that they pass the short ball, he also dictates you don't take any more than 2 touches.
Until
preferably 1.
The youngster come on.
He's ready.
Sit tight on that. There's a question coming up on the youngster. The thing is, though, see, do you know what really epitomises that control and that desire for control of the full game? It's the incident we spoke about where we have a corner and next thing you know it's back at Schmeichel because Schlupp gets the ball on the halfway line and it looks like under instruction he's told, if you're not 100% sure of the pass, we'll start again with Casper. And that's what it looked like, and it looked like we're all of a sudden, you know, corner is a genuine set piece opportunity. To go from that, I think at 2-0 down at the time, back to your goalie, it was come on. And I just think that's the frustration. So you're absolutely right. Can we win every trophy? Can we progress in Europe and lose a couple of games to Rangers and be happy? Yes. But there are, you know, it's important to debate in game things that we could be doing better.
Just to state, I'm very sensitive to any criticism of the Schluppster.
Schluppster?
Yep.
He was all right
Where was he
yesterday.
the first goal then?
Just settled in.
Eh?
Just settled in.
Out jumped by...
What heights are asking?
Brendan told him not to jump.
Well, fair enough. So thanks to Badger. I don't know if we really answered what Brendan learned. If anything, and don't get me wrong, we're coming at this from amateur eyes, you know, in terms of tactical.
Speak for yourself.
Aye.
How dare you?
Jeez,
Sorry, one set of amateur eyes and 4 professional eyes over there that seem to know what they're talking about. But yeah, it's not too obvious of any tweaks that we made from the poor performance at Ibrox.
It was worse.
And the one at Celtic Park yesterday. The follow-up question from Chris, again in the WhatsApp group, and he says, has the post-split game at Ibrox now been cranked up a notch? And for Rodgers, is it now a must-win or at least a must-not-lose? Or does it not matter? Can you go and lose that, win the title, who cares?
That pretty much, I think. Like I say, it's the opponent that creates the intrigue and debate in this, just because it's Rangers. You must beat Rangers as a Celtic manager. Doesn't matter whether it's home,
but that
away.
Is the world. That's the world.
20 points clear, 20 points behind. You must win that game. Rangers played that game yesterday like they really had to win, and Celtic played like they didn't need to win. That was
which is exactly the case.
And that's the case. That you know, it's kind of human nature. But I don't think. I just think it creates more noise. But the chances are when we go there, we might actually be even further ahead than we are now.
Yeah, there's a possibility.
That's the madness of the whole season.
Because they're going to drop points to whoever next week.
What do you think? Does it change the pressure, the intensity, or will it just all be part of the conversation when we go there?
No, I think it just what Rodgers needs to do is instill that self-belief in these players that they can go and wrestle this tie back, because he's the one that's allowed it to be wrestled away from us, and you can't deny that. We've won one of these games in 90 minutes this season, drawn the 3 each in the League Cup, beat twice. So they've very much got the bragging rights in that regard. So he's got to wrest control of that back to put the self-belief back into players and show them that they're building for next year again. They're not building for next year, Rangers. They've got a whole change coming. We are building for next year.
What is the key thing in those 3 games? What's changed the dynamic? It's that Rangers have scored the first goal. If you look at those 3 games, in 2 of them Rangers have scored very early.
I don't think we're mentally very strong as a team. We will under those situations, you know.
What that does is it means that the tactics that they're going to employ then just have more gravitas within the game, because it's set up to spoil, it's set up to kind of contain. Yesterday, I'm not a big person for the stats or stuff like that, but if you look at the stats,
I'm not a big person, full stop.
Ah, well, that's also true.
Is that why he's back in wrestling?
Absolutely representing us shorties. The amount of shots we had, possession we had, you can clearly see Celtic are, in theory, the superior team, but that football isn't just quite simply based in stats. The most important stat is the goals that you score. And Rangers set up, their tactics are allowed to play through because they get that early goal, or they score first in the game, because it allows them then to go into a shape and contain and do all those things, and it makes Celtic have to try harder, and that's why the players get more frustrated, because they're trying to do things and it's maybe not coming off. The first goal's so critical in these games, and I just think that as we know, as the whole league knows, if you actually give Rangers the ball, that's when you'll get joy against them, because they'll push up the park a bit and you'll get in behind them. That's how every other team in the league's beating them. Whereas at Celtic Park, it's never going to be accepted for us to sit in a shape and let Rangers have the ball.
No.
So we then have to almost directly play into their hands. But we just have to be better at what it is we do. And sadly for us, I would even say in the past 3 games, even though we won the League Cup final on penalties, I just think for whatever reason, manager, players, occasion, length of the grass, whatever you want to say, we just haven't been really, really sharp at what we do. And that's why we've given Rangers the opportunities in those games, added to the fact they've got the first goal.
And you're spot on with the points, nothing I would disagree with there. And it is funny because we're, rightly I think, on this occasion, questioning some of the mentality of some of the players at Celtic, yet they just go on to win every trophy going. So there's clearly a winning mentality. There's a collective mentality that over the piece, over the 38-game season and the challenges of knockout cup football, Celtic can do it. But sometimes on occasion, when you're up against it and you're met with some of maybe the blood and thunder of yesterday, we have struggled.
Some of our older listeners may be able to add some validity to this, but I think I can remember my dad mentioning that the Lions team were often criticised for their performances against Rangers at times as well. I think Rangers had a fairly decent record against them. I don't know if they were just more highly motivated in that game. I may be wrong, but I can remember my dad saying things like that. It might just be at this juncture that game just means the most, or means slightly more to Rangers at this point because of where they are and how little they have to play for versus where we are domestically. I don't know, but that would be unacceptable for me because as fans, it is our absolute everything.
And what is clear, and the debate will always rage on about different versions of Rangers, Newco, Oldco, Sevco and all that stuff. This fixture still means this fixture still means so much, James, and you can dress it up in any way and we can talk about being ahead in the league in Europe. It still means so much to Celtic supporters, and we've seen that in the last 24 hours.
I've just given the perfect example why it matters. It's Monday morning at your work, you're having to take pelters, and I remember going through the 90s and it was just year after year, week after week, whatever. And, don't get me wrong, in the last 25 years, we have had whip hand massively in Scotland, and nothing can touch us on that. But this tie, if you want to maintain that dominant status, then you need to keep winning this tie, because if you don't, you give the other team belief, and that can't be allowed. Yeah, I'd agree with all of that.
If you're winning, they're losing. Simple as that.
Yeah.
I think that's what Brendan Rodgers said during the week.
Said when Clement, he was asked to comment on Clement getting bagged. Blah, blah, blah. I never like to see a manager go to big Glasgow. If you're not winning, you're losing.
Aye, you're either first or you're last. But anyway, final question, Miff, comes from Tino at the Celtic Exchange. He says, based on recent form, should Yang be getting a start over Nicolas Kuhn against Hearts in a couple of weeks' time?
Probably.
What do you think of his impact when he came on?
I thought it was fantastic. I really did. I thought it was fantastic. The second goal comes from an excellent first-time pass, bravery,
very much
creativity, moving the ball quickly, all the things that we expect to see for this Celtic team. Mm-hmm. He epitomised that. He actually drove at players by driving inside at pace. He created openings that just previously weren't there. It really was a brilliant cameo, and one of many brilliant cameos that he's been coming up with. I think Celtic fans months ago would have looked at some of his sub-performances and go, son, just forget it. But what's very apparent is he must be dynamite in training. He must be so good. He must be so good.
The manager backs him.
And clearly, and the team back him.
Mm-hmm.
You see the team back him. You can see he's clearly popular within the dressing room. And you've seen that when he got his goal at St Mirren. Maybe this is just him finding his feet. It's difficult for these lads coming from the other side of the world, and a completely different culture, completely different style of football, a very unique challenge in being a winger at Celtic, where it's like, just be absolutely perfect, mate. Is that all right? Aye, right, cheers. That's your brief. And it's maybe just taking him that wee bit of time, added with the love and support of his girlfriend, and now here he is, making an impact.
Yeah.
What more can we ask for?
James, often in football, and I think we've seen it a bit at Celtic, guys get picked on reputation, but actually, more often than not, players should get picked on form. And if that's the case, Yang is on better form than Nicolas Kuhn right now.
Yeah, I think one of the problems is Kuhn doesn't have as many strings to his bow as he should have for to be a fully successful winger. Yang's a better dribbler than him. You saw that yesterday. And what Kuhn had was getting to the byline, putting the ball in, or cutting inside and left. That was the kind of two things he does. I don't think he goes to the byline anymore. It's just coming in. And we all know what happened to Louis Palma. So if you've only got the come inside move, it's not going to work out. And I think Kuhn's an outstanding talent, but I think he's got a lot of development to go.
I think he's an exceptional player. And I don't think it's much more than he just dipped a bit. There might have been some contract talk. There's rumours about Newcastle and maybe that's affected him. I think he's a very good player who had a blistering start to the season for the first half, maybe even 2/3 of the season, but he's dropped off recently, and that can happen with wide players and with young wide players. I think that can happen, and in that maybe drop off comes a wee bit of a lack of confidence, and that leads to him always wanting to go inside rather than doing.
But I think he's been read. I'm going to be up against Kuhn today, right? I know what he's going to do.
Yeah, but I don't think it means he's not a one-trick pony for me. He's got all the tricks in his locker, but he's maybe just shown less of them in recent times. But anyway, we'll see. But it's going to be interesting, whether Yang gets back in or what happens once Calmac's back in the play. There's a few calls to be made in that game in a couple of weeks' time, and I'll ask for your thoughts just as we close the thing out. Before we finish, I want to highlight a new episode we released last week that you might want to check out. It's called Calmac, KT and Working with Brendan Rodgers, and it's with ex-Celtic Academy coach Greig Robertson. I mentioned Robbo a couple of times. There's some really brilliant insights into it. He worked at the Academy for 18 years, initially with Tommy Burns and various other coaches throughout the years, including spending good time with guys like KT, Calmac, James A. Forrest, Ben Doak, Karamoko Dembele, all these talented players there. Greg's currently working as a technical director at Boston Bolts over in the States, and the episode was really good, some really good feedback, and we're looking to make it a semi-regular feature, so check that out. The link is in the show notes for this episode. As I mentioned, we've now got a couple of weeks break, international stuff, and couldn't have come at a worse time, if truth be told. You want to get right back to it after a result like that. The next game for Celtic is Hearts at Celtic Park on the 29th of March. Miff, what kind of reaction are you expecting in that one?
I expect us to be looking to right some wrongs, but I kind of expected that against Rangers, to be quite fair. No, listen, one thing we know about this team is that they bounce back well, and as I say, they've earned the right to have a wee slump and a few bad results. We shouldn't forget that we are 13 points clear, and it's these players that have got us there.
Yeah, some people are saying, we're lucky we're 13 points clear, we'd be in trouble. But we're 13 points clear and we're not in trouble. And that's the bottom line. And there's a lot of work that have gone in. 30 games been played so far. And the work that have gone into those 30 games are why you're 13 points clear. So you can't just dismiss it and saying, we're lucky that's the condition. That is where we're at. Yeah. There's a maximum of 10 games left, James. That would include trip to Ibrox, Scottish Cup semi-final, and possibly a Scottish Cup final. What are you expecting across the rest of the campaign?
I mean, you've kind of got to go unbeaten just to kind of restore a bit of belief. Get the title dealt with in as little fuss as possible. Don't be stalling it. Guys are booking ferries and hotels and stuff. Don't ruin their plans, because that can be annoying. I don't really have any concerns for Hearts coming up, but it's a great opportunity, because they're a better team than they've shown this season, and they can Hearts. So it's a good, if you go out and just be very, very convincing and win that game, then it resets things a wee bit and allows us to kind of move on. I know we touched on it there earlier on. I think Ibrox is becoming a really intriguing game, and one you've got to see it as an opportunity, not a threat. That you can just go in there and assert yourself and just say, look, it was you won a game. It meant absolutely nothing. Same as this one means nothing, and we go on.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one to look forward to, Miff, and I think I hope the players are desperate for that fixture at Ibrox to come around, and we'll get there soon enough. Just, in terms of the Hearts game, it's actually a decent game to look forward to, isn't it? It's a fixture which usually gets the crowd going. They've picked up a bit of form. They'll be closing in and hoping for third place. There's a wee kind of three-way fight between, I think it's Aberdeen, Hibs and Hearts, for that. But it's a good game to come back to after, the disappointment of yesterday. Yeah,
no, absolutely. It's one of the better games. Really just depends how Hearts will go about it, if they'll come and have a go. But I think Rangers have shown the template how teams will try and set up against us.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting, and that's up to Brendan Rodgers and the players to respond. James, obviously we've covered a lot, lots of ifs, buts and maybes and where it all went wrong on the day, but your final comments for the week.
That's why I got my phone out. I was sitting next to the lad Kieran in the North Stand yesterday. So Kieran's in a jet with his wife Jenna, and they're playing at the Brazen Head a week on Saturday, I think.
Very nice.
So
Kieran and Jenna?
Jenna and Kieran, I think, actually is how it goes. So a nice lad, and hope he's musical.
At the Brazen Head in a couple of weeks' time?
Yep, because I think he's except for the Nationals. And also a shout out to my Uncle Manus, who I was talking to today for St Patrick's Day down there on the south coast at Eastbourne in England.
And he is also my Uncle Manus.
Yeah.
So shout out to Manus. No, good stuff. Miff, final word of the day goes to yourself.
Listen, we move on. Simple as that. We move on. Lovely to be back. I know I've not been fairly intermittent when I've been on, so it was nice, very cathartic to chat things through. And yeah, international breaks came at a bad time, but maybe it gives us a wee bit of time to go away, forget that game ever happened, and just come back, go at it full throttle again.
Yeah, let's reset and come back stronger. So that wraps things up on this latest episode of the Celtic Exchange Weekly. Thanks to James and Muff for joining me for this one, and thanks to you for tuning in. We'll be back next week with the Celtic Exchange Weekly. And don't forget to check out the Celtic Exchange Plus if you want to enjoy ad-free listening for every episode we do, early access to this Celtic Exchange Weekly on a Monday night, and a chance to win a copy of the incredible Celtic jersey book by Paul John Dykes, and various other benefits. There's a link to all of that in the show notes. But until next time, put Sunday's result to bed. Have a brilliant week. We'll see you all again really soon.